My adopted sister humiliated me at her birthday party in front of 200 people, but my aunt revealed she's her biological mother and gave me $500K to get revenge. Now my parents are begging, and Victoria had a mental breakdown. I'm 19 years old. I study graphic design at university. And what happened like 3 months ago at my sister's birthday party basically blew up my entire family in the most dramatic and satisfying way possible. I'm not gonna lie. I guess I should start from the beginning, so you understand why everything I did afterwards was totally justified. I mean, my parents literally treated me like garbage for years while they turned my adopted sister Victoria into a spoiled, pampered princess who never heard the word no in her entire life. The thing is, Victoria came into our family when I was like a year old. Maybe a year and a half. I obviously don't remember because I was a baby. But basically my parents adopted her, and from that moment on, it was like I ceased to exist for them. And I'm not exaggerating. Seriously, everything in that house revolved around Victoria. Her birthday was a national event like the Oscars gala, while mine was literally a supermarket cake and that's it. You know what? I mean, she had her own huge room with a private bathroom and everything decorated like it was a 5-star hotel, and I shared a small room with all my stuff crammed in because I didn't need that much space. Victoria had the latest iPhone every time a new one came out, designer clothes, everything she asked for. And I walked around with a phone from 3 generations ago that froze every 5 minutes and outlet or secondhand clothes that my mom bought because you don't care about those things anyway. When the reality is I did care, but it never mattered what I wanted. Growing up was worse. Like my parents went to all of Victoria's events, every ballet recital, every school play where she had a tiny role, every volleyball game where she basically warmed the bench. But when I won a state-level art competition in high school, my parents didn't even go to the ceremony because they had to take Victoria shopping for a dress for her dance. And when I say Victoria was spoiled and pampered, it's not an exaggeration. That girl could literally do whatever she wanted. Yell at my parents, break things when she got angry, treat me like her personal servant, and there were never, ever any consequences. One time I borrowed a sweater of hers, which by the way was a super basic black color that she didn't even wear, and she threw such a huge tantrum that my parents grounded me for a whole month without seeing my friends. But when she accidentally spilled red paint on my final art project that had taken me weeks to do, my mom just said it was an accident and that I should be more careful where I left my things. The favoritism was so obvious that even my grandparents noticed it. But every time someone said something, my parents got super defensive with the whole, "we treat them equally, you don't understand" thing, and basically acted like the problem was other people, seeing things that weren't there. The truth is, I learned from a very young age not to expect anything from them. Like for my 16th birthday, which is supposed to be important, my parents organized a small family dinner at home. But for Victoria's 16th birthday, they rented an entire venue, hired a DJ, professional photographer, themed decorations, worth I don't know how many thousands of dollars, and basically invited like 200 people. That day I stayed in my room crying because it was so unfair it physically hurt. You know? Anyway, we get to the present. 3 months ago was Victoria's 18th birthday, and obviously my parents were going to throw a mega party. Because it's her coming of age, it's special. When my coming of age had been a year ago, and they literally didn't even buy me a cake because you were already at university, we couldn't celebrate it like we wanted. So they organized this huge party again, like a garden with white tents, waiters, gourmet food, live band, the complete thing that must have cost a fortune. And I was there because my parents forced me to go with the whole, "she's your sister, you have to be present" thing, when the reality is Victoria and I didn't have any relationship beyond living in the same house. I arrived at the party straight from university because I'd had classes that day. I was wearing my normal clothes of jeans and a casual blouse. And Victoria saw me and literally rolled her eyes and told our mom out loud that, of course she would come dressed like that to my party, and my mom pulled me aside and scolded me for not having dressed up more, as if I had time or money to buy something fancy for the party of a person who treated me like garbage. The party was going on, and I was like trying to be invisible in a corner eating shrimp because at least the food was good. That much was true. When it came time for Victoria's speech, you know, that moment at parties where the birthday person thanks everyone and says nice things. Victoria took the microphone and started thanking my parents for always supporting her in everything. She thanked her friends for always being there, She thanked various aunts and uncles and cousins, and then, like out of nowhere, she pointed at me and said, "Oh, and my sister is also here," who decided to come dressed like she was going to wash the patio, but, well, I guess not everyone has good taste. You can't have everything. People laughed like uncomfortably because they didn't know if it was a joke or what. And she continued, "The truth is, it's inspiring to have a sister who shows me every day how I don't want to be. You know, no direction in life, studying a degree that's going nowhere, no boyfriend, no real friends. She's like my example of everything I should avoid." I froze there with a shrimp halfway to my mouth, unable to believe what I was hearing. Like I felt like everyone was looking at me, and the humiliation was so intense I wanted the earth to swallow me up. Victoria kept smiling like she'd said something super funny, and my parents were standing there, saying nothing, literally nothing. And some people in the audience started murmuring among themselves because it was obvious that what Victoria had said was super out of line. I just wanted to leave, run out of there, and never come back. But before I could move, something happened that literally changed everything. My aunt, my mom's sister, who was sitting at one of the main tables, stood up and walked over to where Victoria was with the microphone, took the microphone from her hand without saying anything, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Since we're making public announcements, Victoria, why don't you tell everyone who I really am?" Victoria looked confused and like suddenly nervous, and my aunt continued, "My name is Rebecca. I'm a corporate executive. I make more in a year than most people here make in 10. And I'm also Victoria's biological mother." The silence that followed was so intense you could hear like a pin drop. Everyone was left literally with their mouths open. Victoria turned white as a sheet, and my parents jumped up from their main table with total panic faces. My aunt kept talking like nothing. 18 years ago, I gave my daughter up for adoption to my sister because at that time my career was more important to me than being a mother. It was a decision I made consciously and never regretted. But what I do regret is having allowed my sister and her husband to create this spoiled monster you have in front of you. For years, I've watched how they treated my biological niece, their real daughter, and she pointed at me, like garbage while they elevated Victoria to a pedestal she doesn't deserve by any stretch. Victoria started crying like hysterically, and my parents ran over to where my aunt was trying to calm her down or get her to stop talking, but my aunt completely ignored them, took something out of her purse, a white envelope, and walked directly to where I was, still in shock, unable to process anything that was happening. She put the envelope in my hands and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "This is a blank check from my personal account. You can put whatever amount you want up to the limit, which is quite high. Use it for your university, to move, for whatever you need. Because unlike your parents, I do recognize your value and your potential." I opened the envelope with trembling hands, and sure enough, it was a blank check from a bank I knew was super exclusive. And on the back, my aunt had written by hand, "Limit $500,000, like $500,000. I mean, it couldn't be real what was happening. Victoria saw the check and literally started screaming that it was hers, that it was her party, that her mother couldn't do that. And she tried to snatch the check from my hands, but my aunt got between us and told her with a super cold voice, "You are not my daughter in any real sense of the word. You're a reminder of a mistake I made that these two pointing at my parents turned into a walking disaster. That money is for someone who really deserves it and is going to use it well." The party basically disintegrated after that. People started leaving like super uncomfortable. Victoria was having a complete breakdown, crying and screaming on the floor while my parents tried to comfort her. And my aunt pulled me aside and told me to pack my things from the house because I was moving in with her that same night, not to worry about anything else. I went to the house escorted by my aunt because she knew my parents were going to make a scene, and literally packed everything that was mine into suitcases and boxes, while my mom followed me all over the house screaming that I couldn't do this, that I was ungrateful, that Victoria was devastated, and that I had to give her the check because she needed it more, when Victoria had never needed anything in her life because they gave her everything on a silver platter. My dad tried to be more manipulative, like he told me he understood I was upset, but that we had to think about Victoria, that this was her, the special day, and I had ruined it, when the reality is Victoria ruined it herself with her horrible speech. That the check really should be for Victoria because my aunt was her biological mother, so technically that money belonged to her. I told them no, that the check had my name on it, that my aunt had given it to me, and that after years of treating me like a second-class citizen in my own family, I wasn't going to gift $500,000 to the girl who had just publicly humiliated me. Victoria appeared at my bedroom door with swollen eyes from crying so much and begged me like literally on her knees to give her the check, that she was so sorry, that she hadn't meant to say those things in her speech, that she was just nervous and trying to make a joke that came out wrong. I told her that her joke had shown exactly how she really saw me, and that her apology was so fake it hurt to hear it. I finished packing. My aunt helped me load everything into her car. She has a super nice gown, and we left while my parents and Victoria screamed from the house entrance. The next few days were a constant bombardment of messages, calls, voicemails from my parents like begging me to come back home, that we could resolve this as a family, that Victoria was very affected and needed to apologize properly. Victoria sent me like 50 messages, switching between begging me to give her the money and insulting me, calling me selfish and a bitch, and telling me she wished I'd never been born. Her typical dramatic mood swings when she didn't get what she wanted. After like a week of harassment, I decided to give them an ultimatum. I sent my parents a message saying I would give Victoria the check if they met 2 conditions. First, they had to make a public apology on social media, explaining all the favoritism and mistreatment they did to me for years, with specific examples and admitting they were wrong. And second, they had to publicly disown Victoria, like write a post saying she was a terrible daughter and that they were completely disinheriting her. Obviously, it was an impossible proposal they were never going to accept, but I wanted to watch them suffer a little thinking about it. I wanted them to feel even a fraction of the powerlessness I felt for years. My parents and Victoria spent days literally fighting among themselves about what to do. My mom sent me messages saying she was willing to make the public apology, but that they couldn't disown Victoria because it would be too cruel. Victoria sent me voice messages crying, saying, "How could I ask that of her?" when she hadn't done anything wrong. My dad tried to negotiate, like saying what if they made the apology but privately just for me, not publicly. To everything I said no, that either they completely fulfilled both conditions or there was no deal, knowing perfectly well they were never going to do it and enjoying every second of seeing them desperate. And the truth is, I never intended to give them the Prezi check. From the beginning, I knew I was going to keep it because I deserved it after everything. But I wanted to play with them for a while. I wanted them to feel like maybe there was hope and then take it away. Like exactly how they had made me feel for years when they promised me things and never delivered, or when they raised my hopes only to crush them with their constant favoritism toward Victoria. After like 2 weeks, I sent them a final message saying, "You know what? The truth is, I was never going to give you the check. All of this was so you could feel a little of what I felt for years. It was fun watching you grovel and beg. Thanks for the entertainment." Obviously, they went crazy. They started sending me messages from unknown numbers because I blocked them from their normal numbers. They created fake social media accounts to harass me. My mom even asked neighbors and acquaintances to send me messages asking why I was being so cruel to my family. Victoria discovered where my aunt lived, my parents probably told her, and one day she showed up there knocking on the door like frantically. My aunt wasn't there because she was at work and I was alone doing homework. I opened the door because I thought maybe it was a delivery or something. And there was Victoria with a crazy face like disheveled and in wrinkled clothes as if she hadn't slept in days. She pushed me to get into the house and started screaming, "Where was the check? To give it to her now, that it was hers by right." I told her to get out of the house or I'd call the police. She grabbed my phone and threw it against the wall like completely breaking it, and then started searching through the whole house, flipping cushions and opening drawers as if she was going to find the check just lying around like that. I had to run to my aunt's bedroom and lock myself in while Victoria banged on the door screaming incoherent things. I managed to call my aunt from the computer using video call, and she called the police and got to the house in like 20 minutes. By the time my aunt arrived, Victoria had already calmed down, like she was sitting on the couch crying and saying she just wanted to talk to me, that she didn't understand why I was treating her so badly, that we were sisters and sisters were supposed to take care of each other, like all her classic manipulation that had worked on my parents for years but didn't affect me anymore at all. My aunt told her to leave immediately or she was going to call the police to report trespassing. Victoria left, but like 2 days later my parents and she showed up together at my aunt's house. They rang the doorbell at like 10 at night, and when my aunt opened the door, my dad like put his foot in the door so she couldn't close it, and all 3 of them forced their way in. A giant fight started with my aunt screaming at them to get out of her property. My parents screaming that I had stolen from their daughter, that my aunt's money should be for Victoria, because she was her biological daughter. Victoria crying and screaming that I had ruined her life. Me recording everything with my new phone. My aunt bought me one the day after Victoria broke the other one, because I knew this could escalate badly. My aunt's neighbors called the police because of the scandal, and when they arrived, like the whole situation was a mess. My parents trying to explain to the police that they were my family and that I had something that belonged to them. My aunt showing proof that it was her house and that they had entered by force. Victoria sitting on the porch floor like rocking and muttering things about how nothing was fair. The police didn't arrest anyone, but they told my parents and Victoria that if they showed up at the property again without permission, they could face charges for harassment and trespassing. And they gave them like an official warning. Took their names and everything. After that, my aunt hired a lawyer to send cease and desist letters to my parents and Victoria, basically telling them that any additional contact with me would be considered legal harassment. I returned to university like 2 weeks later. My aunt had told me to stay with her until things calmed down. I cashed the check and put $250,000 in a savings account. Used $100,000 to pay for all my university in advance, including master's degree. Used $50,000 to buy myself a used but reliable car, nothing extravagant, just something that worked well. And the rest I divided between an emergency account and general expenses. I blocked my entire family on everything, changed my phone number, put all my social media on private, and basically cut all contact permanently. It's been 3 months now, and I'm still not talking to any of them. My aunt tells me my parents call her from time to time trying to find out how I am or begging her to convince me to talk to them, but she basically tells them to go to hell. Victoria apparently had like a breakdown after everything, and my parents sent her to therapy, which honestly is the best thing they could have done for her even if it's 18 years late. My aunt and I have an incredible relationship now. We have dinner together twice a week when I'm not busy with school. She advises me about my career and introduces me to contacts in the design industry. She's literally the mother figure I always needed, but never had in my mom. Do I feel bad about how I handled everything? The truth is no. Not one bit. My parents made me feel invisible and worthless for 18 years. Victoria treated me like garbage every day of my life. And when I finally had the opportunity to have something for myself that they couldn't take away or ruin, I took it, and I don't regret it. Sometimes I think about how things would be if it had been different, if my parents had treated me with even half the love and attention they gave Victoria. But then I remember that speech at her party, the words she used to humiliate me in front of everyone, and any doubt I have disappears. I'm okay now. Better than okay, really. I have my own life, my career on track, a mother figure who really cares about me, and $500,000 less than I started with, but hey, it was totally worth it for the freedom.